Hello, the game we are analyzing today is a beautiful one. It is between Kramnik and Judith Polgar, played in 1997 in Linares. Got inspired by coverage that they're doing together at the moment as a commentary couple for the Norwegian Altibox tournament in, at the moment of recording, 2020. I'm going through the opening moves rather quickly. It's all theory. Just to quickly touch it, white Kramnik is now expanding on the queen side to potentially launch an attack there. Rook to the e file is quite standard. Now, still theory, and the first interesting part is actually, I would say, already kind of here. Although we are still clearly in theory, we will get to move knight to e6, which is clearly forcing black if he doesn't want to lose any material to take the white knight. And with that, white establishes a pawn on e6. Now, what normally happens in this kind of position, black normally recaptures the pawn, but as you can see, it cannot capture instantly, so it needs to invest time, and white uses the time to try to create initiative while black is getting that extra plus pawn. In the game, Judith played f takes e4, knight takes e4 with the strong pawns on d6 and e5 with the potential target on e6. And after knight takes and bishop takes, you can see that now already we have clear light battle about d5 square, attacked twice by white. He would love to have it attacked 3 times, but unfortunately he hasn't. Black has attacked it twice as well, so we can start pushing that pawn. And it's actually very interesting that in this game, Judith chooses to create a strong center, to create strong advanced pawns, actually, as you will see, instead of spending time on capturing the pawn on e6. So here, white needs to move the bishop clearly, and well, bishop to c2 is clearly the best square. Clearly don't make the blunder of bishop f3 whilst you have a double attack. So bishop to c2. Still, of course, we advance with an attack, so we need to move the rook to c1. And now d4, just take a moment to look at this position, how strong the black pawns are on d4 and e4, and how much control they have over in the white position. They control c3, d3, e3 and f3 in the white camp, whilst the white pawn on e6 that I was actually just talking about, well, we kind of forgot about it at this moment. It might become important later again, but yeah, it's a totally different game than anticipated when I saw the position for the first time. Kramnik was unfazed and played bishop to d2 here. Only square the white bishop can move to. And now e3 is played. It's very interesting. I actually considered d3 for a moment here. Let's have a look at that actually. So if d3, then of course bishop b3. And after that I liked bishop to d4 with annoying attack on f2, at least that's how it looks. But white here has, well, many responses, two main responses that are to be considered. One is clearly taking the pawn on e4. In that case, I considered rook takes f2, but after king h1, I'm not so sure about myself anymore. It is white who has a strong bishop pair. The pawn on e6 is not going away anytime soon, and it's not so clear how black would launch his attack, in my opinion. If you go to the other possible move that white has here, bishop to e3, it looks even stronger. We cannot take, because if take queen to d4, for example, then with queen d2 it's actually quite clear that white will just be able to slowly build its position and capture the e4 pawn and push for the win eventually. So I guess that Judith looked into those options and therefore decided that d3 was not the option, but e3 was the way to go. After e3, f takes e3 and d3 followed. Now with bishop b3, if you have a quick look at the position, it's quite a difference than when we had the two connected black pawns. Black king, a little bit open, white pawn, well defended. White is the bishop pair. The rook on c1 is very active, and queen on d1 and the rook on e1 have actually quite some potential. So it's actually clearly that in this position white is now stronger. So if we continue, then in the game queen d6 is played. Yeah, of course, connecting the rooks, putting the queen on a bit better position, and potentially tickling h2. Now Kramnik played a beautiful move, in my opinion. Queen to g4 is just a very wonderful square for the white queen. It is eyeing many key squares here, among which defending additionally the e6 pawn, perhaps the b4 pawn if it would become important, and clearly it is eyeing the g6 square of white as well. And aside of that, it's just a very active square for the queen to be. Black continued with bishop to e5. Yeah, attacking the pawn. Not much else I can say at this particular moment. You can defend with g3, it's fine. But Kramnik decided rightfully that he was not going to go in a defensive mode, he was going to push his own agenda. So after bishop e5 he plays rook f1. The h pawn is not relevant, he says, and well, he is clearly proven right. Bishop takes h2 check. In the words of Judith Polgar, at least you go out with a full stomach. And after king h1, black plays queen to g3. And this is a very logical move again. If you look at the board, the position is quite open. There's a bit of a draft on the black king. And white has all the long range pieces, the rooks, the bishops, and the queen. Also, the black knight is is very bound to staying on e7 at the moment. The more long range pieces are removed from the board, the better it might become. So with an open board and open king, you kind of want to remove them. Having said that, you might want to ask the question, wait a moment, if you want to get rid of long range pieces, then why, instead of queen g3, not first move something else like, well, rook takes f1, check. Getting rid of a long range piece. Well, not really what you want, because the recapture is automatic, and now you give white control over the very strong f file. In particular, also the move rook f7 becomes possible here. And you don't want to challenge that. If black challenge, it's game over, because you get rook takes f8, king takes f8, and after queen f3 check, every possible move is met by the end of the game. Clearly you cannot play knight f5 because you get e4. So if you go to the corner, let's say king to g8, then you get queen f7 check, king h8, queen f6 check, queen to g8, and after bishop c3, the mate threat is very annoying and will cost you absolutely the game. So the only other option we had after the check would be to move our king to e8. Well, there are many ways to finish it, but very simplistic way would be queen takes b7, and after bishop e5 you can just play queen takes a7, and honestly it looks like we're playing Pac-Man instead of chess, and it will soon be game over. What's also interesting, if you consider alternative moves, is actually Kramnik himself mentioned this position, and he called out that if in this position black would play bishop to e5, then that can be met by e4. Let me actually play that move so it's more visual. And after e4 h5, queen to g5, followed by the threat of rook f5, and after the bishop moves from e5, rook f7 is next. It's a quote from Kramnik's book, My Life and Games. Can absolutely recommend that if you're interested in his style. So that all was not played. It was queen g3 as mentioned, and the very nice follow-up from Kramnik here is queen to d4. Very active square and very dangerous. Queen e5, again offering the queen trade. Now please notice that you do not want to take on d3. If you take on d3, the response is bishop to g3, and suddenly it is black who has many nasty threats against your king, which you need to act against. So clearly Kramnik did not make that mistake, and after queen to e5 we got rook f7. Note that you can of course not ignore that rook. It's not allowed to be there, because if you play something like rook to e8 to defend the knight, then we just have rook c to f1 and it becomes even worse. So you need to take the rook, and after rook takes f7 we get e takes f7 check. It's a very strong attack, and the pawn is very far advanced now, so I guess we kind of see why normally black plays for winning the e6 pawn in the beginning. King h7, and only now queen takes e5, bishop takes e5, and rook to c5, tickling the bishop, bishop d6, and after bishop d6 we have rook to c4. Knight to c6 and b5, kicking the knight. After knight e5, rook to d4, very annoying, bishop f8, rook e4, bishop g7, and bishop b4, already eyeing the promotion square of the pawn. Now black plays d2. Now technically we can take on d2 with the bishop. It would not be a mistake in itself. However, since the white bishop on b3 is already defending d1, white is not considering promotion at this moment a threat, and plays the best move. It's actually very nice to see. You might want to take a minute and pause the video if you want to find it yourself. White here plays rook takes e5, and black cannot take back. It's very simple. It needs to keep its bishop on g7 to defend against the promotion of the f7 square. So if we would take now bishop takes e5, you just get f8 queen, and there's no promotion, and we play with one piece extra, so it is game over in this position. So so it is rook to d8 that was played, and here actually also very nice. Kramnik just demonstrated, well, you're still threatening nothing. He played rook to e8, and in this position Judith resigned. And the idea is again very clear. The rook defends the the rook attacks the rook on d8. It also as an extra defender of the f8 square where white can promote. So if black would promote here, then we just take the queen, and after we lose our bishop and we play king h2, there's now nothing that white can that black can do to prevent us from promoting on f8. Let's say rook f1, f8 queen, bishop takes f8, and bishop takes f8, and it's all over. So this was the game played between Kramnik and Polgar in Linares. I thought it was a very beautiful game. Judith tried to push her central pawns, create very sharp play, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see more attacking games, or if you prefer the deeper endgame analysis I make sometimes, and I'll follow up accordingly. Have a great day. Hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.